So that's good. So I think we'll get started. This workshop usually takes about 90 minutes, but it all depends. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's not. And I'm recording this for the purpose of helping others to facilitate this kind of workshop. This means that this one will be published somewhere, probably on the website, will be on the platform YouTube, and it's going to be sort of accessible for anyone who wants to run this kind of a workshop together with the material run-to. So that's the purpose of this session. And you're all welcome into the Miro board. You have the link in the invitation, as also in the chat. And here's the scenario for this workshop, because you don't know each other. So it's an experiment of psychological safety, really, because you're now a team and a product owner and stakeholders all at once. Because the scenario of the Tune workshop, as you will see and experience it, is that there is probably some kind of confusion or misunderstanding or disagreement around priorities. We're not prioritizing technical depth, or our stakeholders and the business are expecting more from a team or a set of teams, because they're supposed to work full time for us as a product owner or an organization. But here's the trick. We work on other stuff as well for that same business. It's called unplanned work, and it's called tech maintenance, and it's called a lot of different things. And that kind of confusion sometimes causes friction. So the scenario here is that you guys are team or teams and product owners and stakeholders, and I as a coach has brought you guys together to talk about this, to see if we can straighten out a few things about this friction. So the friction can vary. It can be this or that, but it's probably around these things. Good. We got an announcement coming up here. Looking forward. I'm looking at it in real time in Miro here. You can also all right. So there's someone let outside somewhere. I'm gonna see what we can do about that. Hang on, let's figure out this one. All right. I wish I was more tech savvy to be able to fix that, but I'll see what I can do here. If you just give me a second. Any questions about the scenario while I try to fix so Hannes can join? This is where we experiment with the psychological safety. Does anyone dare to speak up?
No, I can't. No, I will try to recap what you said just to see if I understand it. So we will be playing along as if each one of us is representing a team or a whole team.
Yeah, either a team, or you could be the product owner, or you could be the stakeholder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So the scenario is that we brought you guys together. Like, we have the team side and we have the business side, if you want, and we brought you guys together into this workshop to see if we can straighten out some friction. That's usually it.
And we will be assigned a role, or how will that?
No, it's way easier than that. So you will just follow.
Yeah.
If I understood you correct, Mats, it's more the mindset we should come into this workshop.
Exactly. So we don't have roles in this workshop. It's more like, I get you guys together, let's talk and see if we can straighten out some friction. But let's pretend there has been friction. And you can choose, you can alternate if you want to be the PO or, a team member or whatever. but just have it in your mind that there hasn't been some kind of a friction. All right, so I'll get cracking. So the first thing we do in this workshop here now, we need to understand the tune capacity formula. So here we go, and I will share the screen, but you can also follow me in Miro if you're not know how that's done. You just click on my icon up here in the right corner, and then you can let go of the mouse, and anywhere I go, you will follow. So tune capacity formula. Here's the thing. We all want to buy to build new cool stuff, the green stuff around here. That's what every team wants. That's what every product owner wants. That's what the whole business wants. So we want to build new cool stuff. And what about our capacity? So here we go. It's like the pink one represents our working time. Most of us are hired for a number of hours a day. It's usually around 8, but if you're lucky enough, it could be like 6 or something else. But that is our working time. It's kind of set. So we take that one, and then we have to take away some of that time for different things. And this is the formula. So we start by subtracting the time we spend on other stuff. That is when we don't touch the code, or in any sense. This is when maybe we have a day off. Maybe we have some trainings. Maybe we have a staff meeting, all hands or whatever. It's time that is taken from our capacity, from our working time, and we can't spend that time on the products. It's just the name of the game. So we have to take that away. So let's figure for a normal 8-hour day, maybe you take an hour away in average. You have to do a calculation, but there is time that goes to this yellow kind of work. It's also work, but we don't touch the products. We don't build the new cool stuff. And then anyone who's in a team knows that we also have to spend time on things we can't foresee. There will be a bug. There will be an incident somewhere. There will be another team screaming in panic, like, we need that API now, and we didn't know about it yesterday, or whatever that is. It's unplanned work. It's something that we can we know it's coming, but we don't know what is coming and when. So we have to take away some of our working time, reserve that for unplanned work as well. And even if we don't reserve it, it's going to happen anyway. So it's going to take our time. It's going to consume our working time. So these are the fires. And then we probably need to spend some time on technical debt or maintenance or refactoring. And here's the black box here. We call it the needed tech debt, hence the N. It can be a lot of things. It depends what you work on. And debt is like, I think every developer knows what I'm talking about, but not every business person knows what we're talking about. Then they're talking about financial debt or what. But so here's the thing, like sometimes we get a product, but we haven't really done everything we wanted with it. So we got some stuff left. And if we don't do that, we have to pay for it later. So think about debt in general as something that we chose not to do now, and we have to do it sooner or later. It's like you're having this dinner, and then after the dinner, you just take all the plates and the glasses and everything, and you shove it in the corner because now it's time for dessert. And that is fine. You just throw a towel over it. You can't even see it. It's gone. Now we can have a nice dessert, have that ice cream, and not be disturbed by all the dishes. But sooner or later, you have to take care of that dish. That is what this black box is for. And sometimes it can be just cleaning a database. resetting something, or just refactor our code because it's an improvement. All right, so we need to take that time out as well from our working time. And then if we don't want to be lame, basically, we need to experiment as well. Otherwise, we will still be using yesterday's technology when we stopped experimenting. It's like, have you heard about this new cool thing called Silverlight? Yeah, it died 10 years ago. It's not cool anymore. And it's like some people are now moving to React and coding in React. That was also cool a few years ago. Now we're moving into something else. So depending on where you are, you probably need to experiment stuff. And it doesn't just have to be technology. It can also be like how time reporting is awesome, right? That's the best part of the week. Some teams doesn't think it is. They could experiment because they're problem solvers. They could experiment with a script that actually time reports for us if we get the time to do that. And then you would save time. That is experimenting time, right? So when we take all these things out, it's a mathematics. We got 8 hours. And take away the yellow, the red, the black, and the blue. Whatever is left, that is the time we have to spend on building new cool stuff. And so this is just about 5 types of work. We got the new cool stuff, the green. Then we got the yellow, red, black, and blue. There might be more. There might be in your type of work, there might be a 6th or a 7th type of work. I don't know. But so far in the years I've been using this one, these 5 have been covering the majority of it in basically any kind of business, any kind of a situation. It doesn't have to be IT. If you work with HR, you also have tech debt. Is that, you know, a salary list that you haven't updated or whatever it is. So this is the basic formula and then the basic understanding of it. So are there any questions about sort of the reasoning about this formula or the kind of the mathematics behind it or the definitions? Because it's important that we understand this one.
I have a question, Mats, Alex here. Maybe it's not relevant, but let's see. Let's take, for instance, sort of put it like this. From what perspective are we talking about new cool stuff? Is it sort of from a customer perspective, or is it for ourselves as well? Because I could see like sort of enablers that I perhaps would create the platform. Would you consider that to be new cool stuff, or would you consider that to be sort of needed, I don't know, in the N category? Where would you place that?
Super interesting topic, and I personally define that as green.
All right.
Because it's a new capability that we're building. We didn't have that capability, that platform thingy that the enabler that you're trying to build, or the API framework or whatever. I mean, it could be a CI/CD pipeline. We don't have that capability, so we're building it. And who is the customer for that? Well, it's probably the other teams. So for me, from my perspective, it is green when it comes to this formula. Then when you aggregate in a bigger sense, if you look at your portfolio, then I would probably call it black. It's like we are spending 20% of our time on building new cool green stuff for our customers, and we're spending 20% building new black stuff so we can be faster doing the green stuff. So it depends on your perspective.
Yeah, and maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but I'm also thinking what is visible and what is invisible. Because if we talk to a person in business, maybe the platform or the underlying technology is not, even though it's a new cool stuff or a new cool thing, it might not be visible for them.
And if it's
interest.
not, and we're coming to that, but if
right.
It's not visible, then that might be a root cause for the confusion and the friction that we're having.
Yeah.
And for anyone interested in agile or whatever, transparency is a really cool thing. We want to have that. So hiding that or keeping it an unknown for some people can cause friction or sub-optimization.
Yeah, and just one last short thing then. I think you answered it when you talked about it, but just to clarify, so maybe just use of different word here, but with regards to improvements, like sort of if I put up a automated test framework or whatever, that would end up in the blue square here.
So if for example, if it's a test case for your automated testing, I would consider that probably green or black.
All right.
Depending on your definition. And I think what you're saying now, Alex, is key, that it's not, no pun intended, black or white. It's wherever you put it, the whole thing, it's not the most important thing what color you label it. It's the understanding that we have different colors of work.
All right.
That is the whole thing.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to sort of decide that a test case is included in the green one, because without the test case we can't ship the green one, then it's green. Or if you consider it black because you separate sort of the code from the testing, then it's black. It's fine. The friction is because we don't understand that we have 5 colors or 5 types of work.
Yeah, or I could do, as you said earlier, have a tune plus and whatever plus is in our context we can use that.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm with you so far.
Yeah. Any other questions on the formula? And you're going to run into exactly this kind of thing that Alex is hitting right now. It's like, okay, so what do we do with a stand-up? Is stand-up green or is stand-up yellow? Well, it depends. Label it as you want. If it's a good stand-up and it's focused on a lot of green stuff and a lot of sort of, if it's a syncing and it's about production, then I would call it green. If it's more like the status report that some of us experience in the daily scrums, then I would call it yellow. So it doesn't matter as long as you sort of do the math. If we got 8 hours, where do you spend your time? You probably spend it on all of them except for the blue one. If you're not in a cool company, then you spend it on the blue one as well. All right. So then we move on, and this is where you actually need to work. So you need to be in Miro, because now we're looking at the information. So here I'm being super blunt. I got business on the left and teams on the right. We have more roles than that, and we have more sort of, we don't even have to define ourselves as business or IT or however you want to frame it, but just to make a point. So on the left here, you have the product owner-ish or the stakeholder-ish or the business owner-ish or whatever. That is the dude with the tie. And then you got the team. So I would like you to drag arrows now from all of these. Like if you think that the team normally knows most about the yellow one, you drag an arrow here. But if you consider that the product owners know more about that one, you drag an arrow there. And we're gonna have a bunch of arrows from your different perspective. And that is pretty cool. So you just go ahead. And if you don't know how to create a line, easiest way is to just hit L on your keyboard and then you get it. Or you can just copy paste some lines that we have here. And let me know if you have technical issues creating the lines, and I will help you. And while you do that, I will answer Hannes who couldn't join. Here we go.
I feel there is a trick in the question, like
No,
like
there's
okay,
never a trick in the question.
okay, who knows about the need? And in my head, like should know or actually know.
Who knows?
Okay, then it
And
depends.
then it is normally, because in some cases everyone's going to know everything, a little bit of everything, but normally, so we get a pattern.
Okay.
But absolutely no trick, Hassan.
Okay, good.
I don't do tricks. Maybe I do sometimes, actually.
I was gonna say, was that a trick?
Yeah, that's too meta for me. I have to discuss that later. Okay, I can see that the number of new arrows is slowing down, so let's start talking about it. So what do you see as a pattern here? A visual pattern?
The business have no idea about the unplanned work.
Yeah, that is one conclusion we can make here, that the business don't know about the need of unplanned work, and probably I see some dotted lines here. I think they indicate that sometimes they know about the needed tech depth and sometimes they know about experiment time.
Yeah.
And there's one arrow going to the yellow one, but the main focus is the green.
I would say that, I mean, there are like 2 points of views when you're trying to estimate, that the product owner has one idea and the team has a completely another view of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just sort of visually and graphically, what we can see is that it seems that everyone in the room agrees that the team has more knowledge about our need of yellow, red, black, and blue work, that where we need to put time, and some of the green stuff, and our left side here, the product owner and the business side, has more focus and more knowledge about the needed green stuff, but less knowledge about the rest of the work types. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I would like to add also that I think the team, I mean, in best case, the team and the product owner knows about the new cool stuff coming. But I think also the team might have their own ideas of what new cool stuff we should be doing. And it's not always in line with what the product owner sees as new cool stuff. So that's,
I agree.
Yeah, something to consider sometimes.
Definitely. And you know, so being a consultant and an agile coach running around in different organizations, I see this a lot, that the teams often have a lot of cool ideas on what we can do, but if we push them hard enough with new green stuff, they're going to be sort of cramped up, or they don't have oxygen enough to make these ideas spin. But if we give them that opportunity and have a healthy sort of dialogue around it, we can make a lot of cooler stuff. So here's the deal. Now we understand the formula. That's a pretty easy one. It's like third grade mathematics, plus and minus. And you also see graphically that we don't share the same view. We don't share the same knowledge about what is needed when it comes to our how do we spend our work time. So could that be a cause of confusion and friction?
Yes, definitely.
Because if it is, then we have to deal with it somehow. So it's not like, magic stuff. It's just about being transparent about this is what it is, this is how it looks like, and talk about it. And that's exactly why we're here today, to visualize that we have different views, we have different knowledges. And we can deal with that in a number of ways. But before we do that, I'm going to run a few experiments, because we can use our time differently. Let's say we spend less time on some of these colors. What will happen to the others? Because there are relations between these work types, laws, if you want. So we're gonna have a look at that first, and then we can look at a little bit at the end on how we can actually visualize this work, so we share the same view. First, we need to understand the mechanics of this. Are there any other questions about this pattern that we have here before we do? I should probably have asked that before I said what was coming, but hey. Okay, so then I'm moving on to the next chapter, which is team capacity relationships, or laws, if you want. And I'm going to start with the first one up here. I can zoom in a little bit on that. Here we go. So what will happen to the other boxes if we spend less time on the needed tech debt and maintenance and refactoring? So let's say we shrink this one to a bare minimum. It was already a bare minimum because it was needed tech debt, but we shrunk it even more, like the bare minimum or something. What will now happen to the other boxes?
Unplanned work will grow, perhaps, like sort of like that or something.
Why is that?
You might get incidents or stuff that breaks down in sort of in production, perhaps. Could be one thing, maybe.
And we get them anyway, right? We get incidents even if we do the black kind of work.
Yeah.
I would say that potentially you get more severe, and you will get more frequent ones as well.
Yeah. Oh. So I think you're onto it, Alex. But I mean, we get incidents all the time. So it's not like we may get incidents, because we do. But what will happen is that we will get more of them. So we will have to spend more time on them because we didn't fix that little sort of thing, and we didn't fix that, upgrade that API, or we didn't clean that database so it got stuck or whatever it was. So we will have more incidents. And then there's one more thing. Since we didn't clean up our code, and we didn't do documentation, and we didn't do yada yada, then it will actually take longer time to fix them as well. So we get more incidents, and they will take longer time to fix.
Yeah, and the intention that people had, I mean, people leave, right, in time. And then, oh, it was James who wrote that code, and we don't know what he probably he fixed something else by writing that code. And
yeah.
if he edited, something else will break somewhere else. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I have this, I mean, I had a team earlier this year, they had an incident in a system they have never touched, because all the people who built it, they're gone. And the management was crazy about, like, how long can it take to fix this? Well, just so you understand, what we do now is we take the code, because there is no documentation, because we never got time to spend time on that. Now we take the application and we reverse engineer the code. So we're trying to back read the code to understand what it does. And then it's integrated with 5 other systems, right? So we need to understand these integrations and what is happening in these systems and how they respond. So we need to do that. And it probably takes us a week to just reverse engineer this whole application. And then we're probably going to find the problem pretty soon. But then we don't have any test cases. We don't know how to test this one. So we have to build the test cases. And you know what more? There is no test environment for this damn application. So we have to build a test environment as well. And since we didn't get time to spend on this CI/CD pipeline that we wanted, when we could have set it up in 5 minutes, now we have to build a whole environment from scratch. That's going to take us another few days. And then if we were right about that problem, we're gonna nail it. And then we have to put it into production. So yeah, sit down and wait. So that's going to happen. And if this happens now, that we need to spend more time in the red zone, in the unplanned work, what then happens to the green work?
My guess is that it will shrink.
Hell yeah, if you don't extend the working time, because you can be damn sure that this unplanned work, it will eat more time than you saved on the black. So let's say, for example, for the easiness of counting, let's say that you should spend 1 hour a day on the black work, but now you spend 15 minutes. Then this red work will take more than the extra 45 minutes that you saved. It's just, that's the way it is. That means you have to take away some time. And now someone took away the whole green work. You might want to hit Control-C on Control-Z on that one. But definitely the green one will shrink. It won't shrink that dramatically, but if this is what it is now, then it will probably shrink to here, somewhere like this. And so in essence, what happens is that we get more unplanned incidents and they take longer time. And we have to take that time from something. And the only thing we can do is take it from the green one. That is the most sort of the direct effect of it. We can fiddle with other things, but if it happens today and we have to fix it today, then what will be sacrificed is the green stuff.
Can I say that although it is shrinking, the inflow of the green one will not shrink. It will continue.
Oh yeah.
So
oh yeah.
It just if there isn't a different color, that will be the backlog of new stuff.
Yeah. So
just
this
grow
one
as business
becomes
is not
longer.
aware of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But what about the blue one? It depends a bit on how you view it, but what I can see that if we have sort of like separate weeks for sort of innovation and planning, if that goes into experiment, if the teams doesn't have anything with regards to that they are doing experiment like
Yes.
in their time, that would probably shrink as well. It might depend on how you view the blue box here, or what you say, Mats.
And that is the what side are you on normally, Alex? Are you on the team side or on the business side?
On the team side, I would say.
Because we always get this suggestion. So hence we have the second law here just below, and we will do that in a second. Because we always get that one. It's the sort of natural response, like, okay, but can we kill that one? So we're gonna now look at that. But are there any other reflection on the law number 1?
I think that normally, like organizations who spend low time on technical debt probably have to like increased number of meetings and things and stuff that's not connected to coding, so to say.
Yeah. So usually what happens is that this yellow one, it goes up a little bit as well, especially if you have more unplanned work, because then you probably have to have a meeting about that big incident, and then you just added work for that as well. So absolutely.
Another thing in my experience is that if you try to decrease the black box too much, you'll just end up with more hidden work. So the developers will not stand for it and instead take the time anyway to do needed.
Good point. Good point, Tony. And this is a key concept when it comes to tune, is that we're talking about where we actually spend our time. We separate that totally from our time reporting and our budgeting, because we might have a budget that says like we're spending 20% on black work. But if we're not, then we're not, right? And if we're spending 50% on our black work, it doesn't matter that the budget is 20, because there is no team that will sort of dodge the black work just because the budget is 0. It will happen.
Yep.
It's just natural behavior.
To Tony's point, I've seen it in different places where the team members take it on themselves, as he said, and that means like, oh, we have this weekend for experiments or creative thinking, and they do it just to fix bugs. Yeah. So there's no experiments here or creativity. It's just like they take on themselves the responsibility. That this is our code and we need to make it better, because no one else cares.
We can prioritize, but these work type relationships, they happen anyway. And then we can say like, let's not prioritize the unplanned work. We can say that and spend time on the green one. But then of course our customers will suffer because the application went down or whatever it is we're working on. But okay, so Alex has an idea. Let's shrink the experiment time. And just to be clear, most organizations have a higher experimenting budget than actual time spent. So most teams will just laugh at this blue one because they're not spending that time anyway. It's like, we can't shrink from 0. Sorry, can't be done. But then we have teams that actually have it. So what will happen if we do less experiment time? So now I'm going to shrink this one and say like, what will probably happen now to the other boxes?
A lot of the new cool stuff might end up in waste because we may not know if they are actually needed.
True. So this one could actually end up in a dumpster. Let's add that one. It's not here, but we're super flexible. So some of this goes into the trash can probably. That's true. What else?
I would argue that also the black box would actually be needed to increase, because you might not find the best solutions. So you need to increase that to kind of keep up.
Yeah, that would probably be true as well. I mean, if we don't innovate automated testing, then we would have to spend more time on manual testing or, etc. What else could happen?
I was thinking maybe you're not as fast as you could be if you experiment and find new technologies and ways to do stuff. So maybe the green one would get smaller as well because we're not as fast as we could be.
So it's almost like there is a potential that we have that we lose.
Yeah.
It might not affect the work types we're doing, but it's the potential that it gets lost with that scenario. It could be.
We only work or do the stuff we know we're familiar with. So in time, this is a spiral that keeps getting smaller.
Yeah. And then again, which one of these colors or work types is normally like a stink bomb that team says like, why do we have so much time we have to spend here?
The yellow.
The yellow. And could we decrease the yellow somehow?
Sorry, I didn't get this part.
So is there a way for us to decrease the time we spend in the yellow and still be sustainable and good?
If we experiment, we could probably do that.
Cool. So if we don't experiment, we won't be able to decrease this one, right? So this one is fixed.
Hard fixed.
Sorry, Harjam?
Hard fixed. Like you know, like a dry wall.
Could be. Now, but I think it's one point. Like we don't decrease the available time we can spend through innovation. That could hit the yellow one. We could probably shrink this one with innovation. We can probably shrink this one with innovation. You know, so we there's a lot of potential that we lose. But there's one more thing that happens when we decrease the blue one. So if you have these kind of, you know, hackathons or learning Mondays or whatever concept you're working with, how do teams feel about that normally? Is it a good thing or is it like the worst time of the year?
No, if you remove it, then yeah, you remove some of the fun part of work as well, which will affect negatively.
Exactly. So if we remove, let's look at this work ad. Come to us and work for us. We don't innovate. We stay the same. You're gonna have a blast. It just doesn't sell that good, right? So we call that motivation. So I would argue that if we remove the experiment one, motivation goes down. And then what happens? If motivation goes down, how would that affect our work types now?
It gets slower.
We get slower, but we also probably get sloppier.
Yeah.
And if we get sloppier, this bugger will increase again. Right?
Yeah.
And then what has to come down? Well, it's this sucker again. So Alex, you lost on this one. No good idea.
Yeah.
I don't think it was your suggestion. It was curiosity, but yeah. And there are more more ones we can have a look at. It's like, let's look at the time. Yeah, we got time spent. So we can do this one as well. What happens to the other boxes when we complete a new feature into production? So now we built something, the new cool stuff, and we're going to drop that into production. And we're going to start using that one. What now happens to the other work types? We just went live with the application A. Does that have any impact on the other colors?
It could, depending on the quality, how it went to production. So if it was just forced into production because of a deadline, then the technical debt and the unplanned work start growing.
Yeah, but let's say it was the nirvana of applications. Okay. It was the most perfect one ever built. What happens then?
Wouldn't it still increase those because you get a larger code base and it will over time grow more complicated with more dependencies if we are talking about code, for instance. So it not necessarily depends on if it's perfect or not perfect. Of course, it would differ in magnitude, but I don't know.
Do the rest agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I would argue the same. So I don't think there is any code we can put into production that won't increase usage, and that will in per se increase the unplanned work a little bit because there's a freaking human somewhere. They're always the error. You know, just by deploying it to production, the surroundings might upgrade at some point, and then we had to upgrade, and we didn't think about that, so we had an incident. Something stopped. Oh, they upgraded to Java 95 or whatever, and we didn't. And we also have to sort of look at it at some time and update whatever we do. So we increase our unplanned work and our needed tech debt every time we put something into production. So for how long can you put stuff to production? Can you continue for a year and just put stuff to production, or 2 years, or 5 years, or how long can we go on with that?
Sorry, you mean without taking care of the increased technical debt?
Even if we take care of it. Because here's my illustration of that. Meet Miss Production and Mr. Capacity. So every time we put a new feature into the piggy bank, we also need to drop another unplanned work and tech coin into our capacity. That means that as long as we're on the green side here, we're cool. We can create 5 applications and run them, maintain them, keep doing the unplanned work around that one. What if we increase that to 25 applications? Oh, now we're probably turning yellow. So there's so much of our capacity that goes to unplanned work and tech debt that we barely have any capacity left for doing new stuff. And then at some certain point, we're going to drop that last coin of new features into Mrs. Production here. Blink. And then we say, like, we're full. There is, like, literally 10 minutes a day we can spend on new things. The rest of our time goes to taking care of what we have. And that is usually handled by sort of decommissioning, for example. It's like you kill the old ones, so we have a sort of a good balance. Or you split the team and say, like, this part of the team take care of that, and this part of the team take care of that. Or you do something. But if we don't do that, we can risk running into 0 capacity teams. And it looks like they have capacity. And with the confusion we had in the beginning, where the product owner only sees the green, right? I have this huge 5-year backlog with new cool stuff that we need to build. And the team's like, yeah, we got 5 story points this sprint. We'll deal with it, but it will take some time, or a light year or something. So that is also important to understand when it comes to tune and the work types. And the last one then, what happens to the other boxes if we actually build something that is done, but we don't put it in production yet because the holy date hasn't appeared, and we're waiting for this mainframe window or whatever it is that we're waiting for. What happens to the other work types now? That's a trickier one, right? Okay, so there are multiple. Yes, go ahead.
Don't we have a lot of stuff to fix because during a year a lot of things happened and you get upgrades and such? So should it be that the black box is larger now, or?
Yeah.
I think also the unplanned work would be larger. You can't just add it there, so something will pop up.
Yeah, so I think you're on to it. It's like either we don't put it in production, we have it on ice, and then when we say, like, now is the holy date, let's put it in production, and then you will go like, you know what? I better check this one first. And then you realize that the surrounding has actually evolved for a year, and you have to rebuild a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe the worst kind. You said, like, that one, oh, that's the third option actually, Mika. But the second one is like, you know what? That code base passed the test last year, so let's just push it to production. It should be safe. And you do that, and the unplanned work just goes boom. Or the third case that you're mentioning, Mika, is that you just, we don't need this anymore, so we throw it in the trash can, that is actually maybe the best case when it comes to the other work types, because it has no effect. You just delete and move on with your life. But from a waste perspective, it's not a pleasant thought, right? You probably spent a month building it and then a year waiting for it, and then you trash it. I don't know. But here's the thing, that pretty much everything we do when it comes to these, it kills our capacity to build new cool stuff. And this is when you, every time I do this one, you see the product owner or the management participating. Today is a bit special because all of you are that, or no one of you are that. But you can see the coin coming in and then goes like, so you're saying that if I don't spend time on the black kind of work, I would get less output on my green. Yes. And this is where the product owners and the managers start taking notes, and they say like, well, I don't want that. How do we avoid it? Teams, are you spending enough time on your black work? And now we're in the place where we can start like discussing how can we find this balance? Because now we know the logic of it. We know the formula. We know that we don't see the same things because we're on different sides of the work types. And now we also know that there's no way to cheat ourselves out of this. And it's pretty simple logics. It's like, yeah, you can argue this and that, and there are going to be special cases, but in general, it seems to be like this. It's been tried now for a number of years in a number of businesses, not only IT, and it just works. So that's me. That gives us time to then move on to the next one. How can we tell if we're balanced, if we're in a good place? So here's a backlog. Let me zoom out a little bit there so you see the bottom of it. There you go. So this one is filled with green stuff, right? What will happen if the backlog looks like this? What would be the typical pattern?
You mean not if you only have new features in the backlog? Or?
Yep. The backlog A here is full of green stuff. What will happen? Let me put
We are
it this way.
moving towards zero capacity for new stuff, right?
Because we're dropping so much in production, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. If we get time to build all these, what will happen to the feature at the bottom here? When will that be done?
Never.
Why is that?
Because the time for each and the next green will just be longer and longer.
And why is that?
Because we don't take care of the technical depth is growing. We see more and more unplanned work. Since we're not innovating, we're not really coming up with better ways to do things. So yeah, code base just grows. The time for the need for maintenance, it grows.
In reality, probably the top 5 will be in progress forever because they will be there by enforcement, and while the team will be working on all the other colors because of reality.
Yeah.
Like when management looks, okay, they're working on those 5. Good.
Exactly. Well, we just bring it back to law number 1. If we don't spend time on the black work, as you said, Tony, then our unplanned work will increase, which means we will have less time to spend on the green ones. And you can be pretty damn sure that we come up with a better idea than this last feature in the backlog at some point. It will trump this one. So we will sail up to, place number 7 or something. And then we wait for another year or so. And then another brilliant idea comes along here and says like, well, I'm gonna set myself in place number 4. So this little bugger down here will never happen. Sorry, it won't. This is not a healthy backlog. It's not sustainable. And there is absolutely no use of having stuff in your backlog that will never be done. So it's better to just kill it. And if you have a backlog full of green stuff, that backlog needs to be really, really short, because you will be swamped with other things. You're not seeing what should be seen. This is the view of the backlog owner that we had from the start. They're only seeing the green stuff. And now I'm going to be starting to be frustrated with, all right, why is there not anything happening? When will my last feature here be done? I'm going to be starting questions. And these questions also take time. So we're going to add more yellow work. So it's a bad circle. It's a bad cycle. So let's try backlog number B. What will happen with this one? We added some tech depth, and we added some experimenting as well.
Yeah, there won't be any experiment if we follow the order of priority. Again, this is it, for me. This looks like we're trying to please someone with this backlog. It's not pragmatic for you.
When will the black boxes be done?
I mean, if we ever reach the black boxes, I wonder if they're still the most prioritized tech depth tickets that we really have, since we've added a lot of new stuff, hopefully, and probably things are starting to work less well. We see more unplanned work, and maybe those tech depth tickets that we made a long time ago now no longer is the most important thing we should be focusing on.
I think that this backlog B crushes motivation even more than backlog A, because it's so visible.
Yeah.
I would argue that backlog B and backlog A is actually the same. Because with the same logic, you won't ever get to the black work. And that might be, as you say, Mikael, it might be even more depressing. I don't know. Depends on your personality, maybe. But in a way, it is better, because now we can see we have accepted that we need to do black work and blue work. We just did not blend it in a sustainable way. So we're not going to get any effect of it. But there was an ambition, and that is better than backlog A. But otherwise, from a production perspective, I think they're the same.
One quick thought: if the whole team works on the first green one and put it in production, and as we said earlier, this will generate potential technical debt and plan, then we will go into this like argument: is that new technical debt more prioritized than the old technical debt that we already have in the backlog? So will it jump, and we will add more technical debt already to an existing backlog? Yeah, I don't want to go there, stuff.
Yeah, and for how long do we prioritize tech debt based on go live date? That would be weird, right? So I have something here that was put in production 4 years ago. That has to be priority number 1. Why? It leads to all kinds of weird things when you go that deep on it, Hashem.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right. So let's try another one. What about backlog C?
tricky.
Tricky?
I mean, after what we have discussed, this looks more reasonable, but still.
Yeah, it's the best one so far, at least.
Yeah,
The best
I think
one
we can
so
do
far.
even better.
it's inclusive.
Yeah, we can probably do even better. But from a sort of schematic perspective, this starts to look good, right? Now we're blending, and we say like, let's do a few green stuff here. We need it's really if something happens in our business or in our market that needs us to push these two really fast. But then we also need to clear some debt, and then we should experiment about this new pipeline thing so we can build cooler stuff faster in the future. But then we start needing some more stuff for the business again. So it's like a balance. And which one of the backlogs do you think can lead to a more sustainable capacity for the team? If you had to choose one.
Backlog C.
Yeah.
C, definitely.
We're talking
So-
about positive capacity, right? So then it's backlog C.
Yeah.
It's not like
Exactly.
flat 0. That's A.
Yeah. So then if we now think that we need to understand what kind of work type we're spending time on, and we should also prioritize all of these in a good, healthy blend. And we know that backlog C is a better pattern. Is there a way for us to see this today? Can we see in our own backlog today what is what? Can we differentiate story number 1 from story number 5? Is it a green one? Is it a black one? Is it a blue one?
We can. I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question, but in Jira that we're using, we have tags for these kind of tickets. So in some way we are able to track it.
Yeah. So and that's awesome, and that's basically what we're talking about. Like, we understand today that we have different perspective. We don't see the same thing, and we have a need for that. And now we also know what the healthy backlog looks like. So can we make it look like this? And yes, if you use Jira, you both have the tags, but you also have the colors. So you can actually use the colors for it. And if you use some other system, I mean, there are always ways of doing this in Trello or in Miro or in Jira or in Azure or whatever you're using. There is a way to make certain things stand out as a certain type of work. You just be creative with your tags, with your colors, with your patterns or shapes or whatever that you can use, symbols. So there's a way to do it. And there's an image of that in a second. But then we can leave this part and move over to like, what is the good balance? What is a good balance for our time?
I have just a question there, Mats, before we leave. Is there like a backlog D that would be even better with some of the red labels in it, or what do you say about that? Should we never put that in the backlog, like placeholders or whatever you would call it?
I say it depends. I'm
Yeah.
consulting. It depends. I think there is, but then it starts to be contextual. So depending on what you're working on, it's like, for example, a few of you guys will work in startups. You will be greenfield, doing greenfield work. You will probably have more green tickets than black. And someone will be working in brownfield, then you will have more black stuff and probably red stuff as well. It depends. Really.
Okay.
So I think there is a backlog D, but that one has to be customized for your context, and might differ from team to team as well.
I see. Cool.
Tony.
Yeah, the way I'm thinking, backlog D might actually look a lot like backlog C in this case, but I would like to just pinpoint that or point out that we have found that we get the best work quality-wise when we actually incorporate the black, the blue into the green. So when you do new cool stuff, you get to maybe innovate a bit in the beginning, thinking about how to solve this feature in the best way long term, and then also take care of documentation, maintenance, and so on at the same time. So that's part of. We're not done until we have done that.
So it's the definition of done, basically.
Yes, and yeah. I mean, we've touched on it, I think, earlier, but I just want to stress that when we do things later, like in some companies, ours included, before we were doing these kind of, we do documentation in the end of a big project and so on, and we just found that it's so difficult to remember everything that we did, so doing things when you're, documenting when you're coding and so on saves us a lot of time, actually.
Yeah, but that doesn't eliminate the future need for technical depth clearing or maintenance or refactoring anyway. But it's a way better to not collect new depth, because if you separate the green from the black when you create new stuff, then you're automatically creating new depth. Sometimes because there is this difference between black work focused on not creating new depth, and there's black work clearing old depth. So there's two different types of depth handling. And also note that the black work is called N, the needed tech depth or maintenance or refactoring or whatever. There we have some other stuff as well, so that we probably should do sometime, but it's not needed. That one we can push. It's totally acceptable to go like, you know what, guys, we have to take a risk now. We don't do the depth. We will collect new depth for the next 3 months because we have to push this deadline. Otherwise, our market window is closed. That is totally cool. That would give us a few green nodes in the backlog C, right? And then we know that we have to take care of it later. And then probably that black node will be bigger. And that is a tactical decision, which is totally cool. So we need to balance this back and forth. And sometimes we can say like, hey guys, now we have a quiet window. Let's do experimentation. Because it's not dangerous for us. It's not costly in the sense of urgency. So there's all kinds of variances that we need to fiddle with this. The whole concept is just, it's easier to have that conversation when we see the same thing. That's why it's important to see it. This part here, it's mainly about finding the right balance. There is no right balance for this. Some people say like, yeah, we do 10% experimenting time. Some say 5, some say 40. Some, it depends. And how much time do you need to spend on needed tech depth and maintenance? Is it 10, 20, 40? Again, it depends if you're a greenfield or if you're a brownfield or if you're really spending time on clean code and as Tony said, like not adding depth, then you might get away with less. But the key thing here is that you have to set parameters on the red and on the black and hopefully on the blue. But the green is whatever is left. It's the delta. because that's what the reality looks like. It doesn't matter what your budget says. It's like, we should spend 65% on building new cool stuff. Yeah, but you're getting 30 because you don't spend time on the tech debt. So that's the important part. Our capacity is the delta of the other ones. Those we should state. And, all right. And the unplanned work is the only one that we can actually have a hunch about. The best way to do that is to ask the team, how much did you spend time on unplanned work the last sprint or the last PI or the last month? And probably you will spend the same amount of time next one. So let's start there. Reserve that capacity. If you spend 25% of your time on unplanned work last time, you probably will now as well. Unless there is some significant change, like you just did a release that was, blah, 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 and it was more prone to failure, or, something that happened. So the rear view mirror is a really handy tool here.
Yeah, I would, in my experience, I strongly recommend creating a guilt-free environment where developers actually track the unplanned work. So adding tickets during a sprint or whatever with the unplanned work, so that we can track it and see it. But in a guilt-free environment, it's important. Otherwise, you wouldn't report it, right?
It's a beautiful thing, but then sometimes reality doesn't look that beautiful. For some, it's like going to Stadsmissionen or somewhere where people don't have money, and you say, like, you know what, it's better to be out of debt. I can recommend it. It's awesome. And it's like, yeah, it's hard. We need to get there first. So yes, but sometimes the reality looks slightly different. And then just knowing that you have to pay off your debt every month is a good start.
Right. Just to clarify, what I meant, why you would do that is to give you the data, basically, to show why we need to focus more on tech debt, for instance.
Yeah. And I think this one touches on that one. This is an example of how a tune board can look like. So in this case, we got the green, as we mentioned before, if you tag it or if you colorize it or whatever you do with it, but make it stand out so everyone can see it. And then you got the green, you got the black, and you got the red. And then what about the red? Also the blue. What about the red? Well, in this case, what we do a lot of times is that we create a new swim lane for that. So if we don't mix it up, because usually red work has priority over any other kind. If something goes down, that is usually more important to take care of, which means that we want to have a clear swim lane up here. And if we don't, it should stand out, like we need to fix these things. So we need to fix bug B and bug A here before we can move on to building the new cool stuff here. So that's the way you can set it up. That works fine in all the tools, basically, except for maybe Trello. But there are other ways. I hear that teams are actually professional problem solvers. So if they want a solution for this, they can find one.
You can actually do it in Trello as well, Mats, with a power up.
Oh, awesome. Good. You have to teach me that one later. I know how to do nested tickets in Trello, like epics that has stories connected to them. And yeah, but I didn't know about the swim lanes. I have to upgrade my Trello skills. All right, and the last part here is then team capacity monitoring. And I think that touches on where you were, Tony. It's like, keep an eye on where you are on your balance. These are just two examples of things we've done. So one would be this one after a sprint. You would just ask your team Like, how much of this sprint did you spend on each work type, roughly? We're not looking for, minutes here. We're looking for percentages. And I usually just give them, 10, 25, 50, 75, 90, or 100. That's what you got. And the 0, of course. And because it's that kind of rough numbers we're looking at. And then you can look at it and visually, and then you can ask the question like, is this a good balance or do we need to change something? And sometimes what happens is that one person spends 80% on unplanned work. That dude is not going to be happy by the Friday. Or he or she is, because she loves to do that kind of investigation. That's fine. But, you get a visual data to have a conversation about. So that is one way to do it, and just spend a few minutes on that question on a retro. It's a super, super fast one. It would take the team 1 minute to get this chart up. Just put your percentages into this chart. Bam, 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 bam. And then like, do we see a pattern that we want to change? Have a discussion for 5 minutes in a lean coffee, and then you have like, okay, action taken. We will share unplanned work better next sprint. Cool, move on. That's a 5 to 10 minute discussion.
I love it. If
Go
I may, I think this is beautiful metric to combine with any happiness metrics that management might ask for, and then you could, show them side by side, like why the team has been feeling low for the last few sprints, and
Yeah.
you might see, okay, they have been 80% in the black.
Yeah. And this is should probably be cut away from this recording, but I've done that at scale, and I will talk about it next month. I will probably do a lunch and learn on that one. We've done it at scale with many teams at the same time, and using this one together with some happiness index and also the product health check index. So we do it. How do the team feel, and how do the applications feel?
Oh,
and we
cool.
combine these metrics, and then you get pretty cool data in a very fast manner.
I have a short recommendation if you're thinking of improving your teams using this metric. Try to not impose the, as a last resort in the retro, put your numbers down without any context, because then it will end up a randomized script on the developer's computer. We had this in my previous work, and it doesn't give any value if you don't present the previous part of the workshop. Like,
Yeah.
What are we doing with this? Where are we going?
Exactly. That's a
Present
good
the
point.
value. Don't forget that.
Yeah, and I think that connects good to the last part here, which is basically, where do you want to be? This is where you follow up over time. So then we can have like, oh, in sprint 1 we had only this much. This is like 2% black work. And then on sprint 2 we talked about it and we added some experimenting time, and it's like it goes up and down. And then you can talk about like, where do you want to go? So set a target over here. It's like, where we think the target is like this, but it's going to take us some time to get there. And then that target is probably wrong. Then we have to tweak it again and set a new target. But at least this it's a pretty easy way to track this. Like, how are we actually doing with our sustainability balance? Because if either one of these work types tilts to the wrong, then the team will suffer somehow. Either people will be pissed and leave. That's the worst, because it's super expensive, and it's also sad. Or our applications will suffer, or our backlog expectations will suffer, and something will suffer if we're not balanced and sustainable around this one. So it's a good thing to track it. One thing though is the box here. Don't look for exact data. Don't fall into the trap of like, oh, we can connect this with work hours in Jira and get it with the 5 decimals. Because basically half of all the clients I have, their data is fucked up because you spend time and you don't have a budget for that time, so you put that time somewhere else. So it's skewed. Don't do that. Build this with trust. If you ask the team how much time did you spend on unplanned work, ask for an honest answer. How much did you spend on that? Not how much did you report on that, or how much should you spend on that. So for Tune to work, you need to have trust, so the team will actually tell you the truth. We're spending 0% time on tech debt. But what? I gave you this budget for 20%. Yeah, but we're spending 0 because you're pushing the green so hard, or whatever it is. It could be the other way around as well. But remember that it's not an exact science. So I usually ask for gut feeling. If you don't ask for a year in perspective, then the gut feeling will be pretty good. If you ask for a sprint or you know, a week or a month, then the gut feeling will be pretty good. And I'm going to create now, because I have some slack here in November, December. So I'm going to create a planning poker thing with these percentages for Tune. So because if you ask the team, it's like, if you have the silent person in the team who thinks we spend 5% and the rest of them shouts 25%, then you will get skewed again. So a good way to do this is planning poker. It's like, what do you think? And then someone says 5 and someone says 25, and then you're like, what do you mean by 25? Yeah, but remember that one? I call that unplanned work. Oh, you're thinking like that. Yeah, I agree. Then it's 25. So that kind of discussion that you bring from a planning poker. So I'm going to create either a card deck or a digital tool for that before Christmas is my plan. Yeah. And that, my friends, is the whole thingy. So if you now were my beautiful team and product owners, I would probably say, like, now you got some knowledge. Let's talk about this in the next retro, or create a session for it. And how do we deal with this? This was just knowledge. Now we got knowledge in our heads. Then let's figure out what to do with it in a separate session, because now people's minds are going like, just take a break and don't do it now. So that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was
Yeah.
really good, Matt.
If you got any questions, I'm here, so just ask.